Hi guys, today I want to show you how to dome your one strokes, which is something that I saw on another YouTuber's channel. It was Juicy Body Art and her name is Sudi. And I saw her do this, so I started with my rose one stroke that was kind of a bad one stroke. It had been repaired with a lot of other paint and messed around with, so I went ahead and did it on that because it was getting really run down. And now I want to try it on this Diamond Effects neon rainbow one stroke that I have. So I'm going to use a pretty sharp knife to do this. If you use a sharp knife like I am using, please be careful and do not cut yourself. The angle that I'm going to start is just a kind of a triangle in the corner, so a pretty steep angle. And I'm going to cut on both sides and then flip the paint over and build up the middle. Now, like I mentioned, I saw this on another YouTuber's channel, Juicy Body Art, and I will put a link to that video or to her channel below this, so please check that out. I had watched her do this a while ago and have wanted to try it, so I'm going to kind of test this out and let you guys know what I think. Now you can see I took this knife and I'm really just pressing. I'm not really dragging it across, just pushing it into the paint. And then I'm going to pop out the little triangle of paint that I've cut and then flip it over and put it in the middle of my cake. Now, depending on what kind of paint you use, some face paint is a little bit more crumbly than others. This is a Diamond Effects split, and I use a lot of DFX paint. I really like it. It has more of the consistency of like soft molding clay, so I find it's very easy to manipulate. Some face paint is not, so depending on what brands you're using, this could be more difficult than what I'm doing here, which I found to be relatively easy. As I started cutting the other side of this one too, I noticed that I'm placing it too close to the edge. It really needs to be closer to the middle, so I do fix that later and push it closer to the middle and cut a little bit more off from what I kind of left behind on that side. So you'll see me do that. I'm going to speed this up a little bit, but I want to assure you I'm going very slowly and being very careful with this sharp knife. You can see a butter knife to the left of my hand there. I used a butter knife to start on the rose split and it just wasn't sharp enough, so I wanted to switch to something that was a little thinner and sharper. So I am just pressing and pushing this knife down into my cake and plopping out another, ends up being kind of a triangular shape. And then you just flip it over, line up the colors, and push and press it down into place. You can also kind of squeeze the two pieces together. And here you can see I kind of realized that I really didn't line it up very well and I left too much paint on that other edge. So I'm going to fix that. I'm also going to grab a wet wipe and use that to manipulate some of my paint. If you just push on your splits with your bare fingers, you're going to start transferring paint onto the other colors where you don't really want it to be. So using a wet wipe is incredibly helpful. It also adds just enough moisture to have those colors that you've pulled apart start to meld back together. So I'm kind of getting that piece that I left behind and getting that flipped over and lined up. And this really it was quite easy. I thought it was going to be a little bit harder with all of these colors in the rainbow, and it wasn't. And I also kind of figured, well, if I can do it with a rainbow split, than I can do it with some of my other paints because the rainbow is going to be the hardest. So I wanted to demonstrate that one for you guys. Now, I'll also mention that the channel that I mentioned, the Juicy Body Art, she makes hers from scratch too, not just manipulating pre-made one strokes. So I imagine if you do it that way, it would be even easier than trying to manipulate paint that has already been placed into a one stroke, if that makes sense. So there we go. Worked out pretty well actually to line that up. So I'm going to do the same thing with this one stroke that's just starting to get dipped in the middle, which drives me nuts. I really, really dislike that, and I imagine everybody does. So that's the idea behind this, is instead of wearing down your one strokes so that the middle starts to hit pan, if you can build up the center of your one stroke, then theoretically that's not going to happen. So this has intrigued me for a long time, and I've really, really wanted to try it. So I'm just going to do some test ones and give it a go. So you can see I've split it in what is almost thirds. The middle is a little bit bigger than the two sides that I'm cutting out. And I do feel like I finally got the hang of it with the third one too. This one went the smoothest out of the couple that I've tried. So I'm just kind of flipping over that triangle, and then naturally, the way you've cut that, it's going to be thickest in the middle. And then you line up and cut the other side out, and then do the same thing. So now that you have your pieces cut out, you just want to press and push them together so that the bulk of your paint is in the middle of the split, and then it's cascading down to the edge. So I'm going to use my wet wipe again so I don't get my colors all muddy, and I'm just pressing and pushing them into place and trying to pinch that center together. This one had a little bit more of a gap than my Diamond Effects Rainbow Cake that I just did this with. And this paint is still pretty manipulatable. I can't remember what brand this particular one stroke was off the top of my head, but just a little bit harder than that other one. But there you go. It actually didn't take long, and so far I really like the idea of this. I'm excited to use it on the job. You can see the rose one that I did first. I tested on my arm, and the rose looked really good. Now, it is odd when you're running a brush over this. You're running a brush over a hump instead of a straight flat surface, so it feels a little bit odd. The other idea is if you have excess paint, it's going to go down into those empty wells on the side instead of pulling up onto your paint. So here's just a little demo of what my rainbow one stroke looks like. It looks great. It doesn't look muddy or anything. This purple and pink one is one I use for princess crowns a lot. I like how you can kind of focus on one edge and really quickly, load one side and then load the other. That I like about these a lot. And I'll show you how this one looks. It looks normal. It didn't change the consistency or the way the colors apply at all. So that looks really good. And I'm really, really excited to try these in an event. I will definitely be using these at my next event to see how they wear on the job. They look really good. If you guys do this or have any experience with it, I'd love to know. And I will definitely give you guys an update when I have a chance to use them. And as always, thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe.